Hello, my name's Corvimae. I'm a Pokemon speedrunner. If you're not familiar, about 8 months ago, a little less than 8 months ago, I wrote an essay titled Failing to Find a Blue Nidoran that discussed my experiences as a then recent member of the Pokemon speedrunning community, and I didn't have super nice things to say. If you haven't read it, I recommend reading that before watching this video. It'll add a lot more context to what I'm talking about here, as this video is meant to be sort of a follow-up to what I discussed there while I hatch Eevees so that I can use them for a Sylveon Trade Alt main run and hopefully get a shiny. As a consequence of the essay that I wrote and the discussions that followed, the centralized PSR Discord ultimately ended up splitting up into a bunch of smaller Discords that are separated by the console. So Gens 1 through 3 have a Discord, Gens 4 and 5 have a Discord, Gens 6 and 7 have a Discord, and then LGPE and Sword and Shield have a Discord. And this video is sort of me attempting to gather my thoughts about the last 8 months and how that's gone, as well as address some of the surrounding discourse. Before I start, I do want to say that I am actually very happy with the community that we built for Switch speedrunning. I know that there are a lot of people who felt alienated from Pokemon speedrunning, who have come back and done runs of Let's Go and Sword and Shield, and that's really exciting to see people see that, like, the community that we've built there is inviting to people, and that they're willing to give these things, like, give this another shot. I'm a little bit biased because I am a mod there, but I like to think that we did a good job. I hope that people feel that they have that they're comfortable and feel the freedom to raise issues when they arise, and that there isn't a secret secret discontent. I haven't heard of any, but yeah, I hope that people are as happy with that community as I am. It's really exciting to me that there are a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people from Frame Fatales come back and do some Let's Go and Sword and Shield speedruns, since the Pokemon channel in the Frame Fatale server specifically exists because people felt alienated from PSR, so the fact that we were able to create a community that people felt invited to is really exciting. But yeah, so I'm going to talk about sort of the follow-up, I guess, to what I wrote, the core tenet behind that essay is that communities have an obligation to remain vigilant against bigotry, or else they're going to fall victim to the paradox of tolerance, which, if you're not familiar with the paradox of tolerance, it states that if a group is tolerant without limit, then the intolerant will seize and destroy that tolerance. This generally occurs as a death spiral, where the victims of intolerance and their allies leave the group because they don't want to. They either feel like it's not a safe space, or they're just so frustrated with nonstop arguments and having to put up with people being shitty. And then that decreases the pushback against bigotry until eventually there's only intolerant people. This happens a lot on internet groups with lax moderation. You see it on Reddit all the time, where there's some, like, seemingly innocuous meme subreddit that suddenly becomes a neo-Nazi hellhole because there's not, like, the people who were just going there for the fun meme leave because they don't want to deal with all the neo-Nazism. I'm not going to call anybody out specifically in this video, but goodness, a lot of people who took issue with my essay, I don't seem to understand the paradox of intolerance. The amount of criticism that I've gotten that essentially boils down to, well, who are we to moralize? It's a lot. It's a lot of it. I think there's a couple main groups of this sort of criticism that I see. I think there's a lot of people who have never really had to fight for their right to exist and think that this is just sort of an overblown thing that I raised. And to some extent, I got my shiny one. To some extent, I understand that as a gut reaction to challenging ideas or a challenging of the status quo. But I think that you should take that as an opportunity to, reevaluate and not get into a situation where you're defending people's right, or quote unquote right, to shout slurs. Like, I've seen that a little bit where it's like, well, who are we to say that you shouldn't be able to use a slur? And it's like, that's not a hard one. I shouldn't have to explain to you that you shouldn't say slurs. Like, at best, it's a bad look, right? And if you do that, you're going to fall into a situation where people think that you're bigoted because you've hitched your carts to bigots. And, like, I'm not going to correct them because as far as I know, you are. I think there's another group of people who didn't actually read the essay and just saw that I was writing about social justice and assumed I was canceling people. I specifically made an effort when writing that essay to focus on systems and not individuals, to the point that I opened my essay by stating that, and I didn't name people. And, like, anyone who's levied the criticism that I'm trying to cancel people, I'm ignoring you because you did not read it. Like, it's not worth my time to argue with you if you're not going to at least engage with the content. Then the third group is people who are genuinely deeply bigoted, and fuck those people. They don't deserve a spot in a community. I think that people who try to, like, I don't care that you don't get to, like, use PSR as a backdoor for your bigotry. Like, no. Yeah, and, like, this idea that a community shouldn't have the responsibility to manage itself, it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't think a lot of people would argue that if, like, a bot showed up, let's say, in a Discord and started just posting spam links, that it should be banned. I don't think anybody would say that it shouldn't be banned. But there are people who think that, like, but the problem with having that bot there is that it's rendering the environment unusable for the people who intend to use it properly. And somehow there are people who think that homophobia and racism and transphobia and other forms of bigotry are just a difference of politics, and that those ideas deserve respect, despite the fact that this is worse than spam. Like, beyond the fact that they render the community uninhabitable for the targets of that bigotry and those who are their allies, they do real permanent damage to actual human beings, whether that's through the immediate traumatic effects of just seeing that, or through the slow influence of people's sentiment and the thereafter long-term eradication of their human rights. And I think if you have a community, then you have if you are a member of a community, you have a responsibility to make that community hospitable to the oppressed. And I think if you are an admin for a community, then you absolutely have that responsibility, and that you shouldn't take on the responsibility of being a moderator or an admin if you're not up to the task. I see a lot of people say that the PSR split went too far, and that it was too quick, and that it was unnecessary. And I would honestly argue the opposite. I think there's still a lot of work to be done. I know some of the sub-communities I think are doing a really good job, or at least a decent job. I've been happy with my experiences in the 3DS and Switch community, as I partially mentioned before. But there are others that I know that are talked about behind the scenes as still being toxic and uninviting as they were 8 months ago, which is sort of the issue that I wrote originally. And, like, I'm not surprised that this is the case. We're dealing with very deep-rooted societal issues, and they require a lot more than just, a soft reboot to address. But I'm disappointed that there are people who remain active and venerated members of PSR, despite their efforts to keep minority members from feeling comfortable in their own hobby. I know I've personally kept away from getting more involved in DS Pokemon runs, beyond the little bit of White 2 that I've done, because of the events surrounding the removal to try to get rid of the LGBTQ tag. And just the discourse around that made me really not want to engage with a lot of the people in that community. And I don't want to be in a situation where if I want to speedrun something, I have to, rely on the work of somebody who is a bigot. And that's sort of unavoidable in some games. And I think that sucks. And I feel like you should hold your community to a higher standard than that. And I know that, I'm not saying every single person in the DS community is a shitbag. There are people in the DS community that I'm close friends with and that I respect, but there are also people in those communities, in that community that I 100% do not think should be there. And if you think this is about you, think about why that might be the case. I don't know if I really have a conclusion. This is kind of all I wrote so far. I got my shiny Eevee, so that's really exciting. I'm really happy that things are better than they were, and I'm disappointed that things aren't as good as they could be. And I think that's sort of a eternal push and pull. These Eevees already hatched. That just kind of have to deal with. That's life. But I hope that people can. I hope that things get better. And yeah, I think that's all I got. I just want to, I guess, quickly thank everybody who is doing their part to make the community a better place for everyone. I have a lot of close friends in this community that have done a lot of work, put in a lot of work and a lot of effort to make it just better for everyone. And I'm indebted to them and appreciate all the work that they've done. And I just hope that more and more people feel comfortable in PSR going forward, and that the improvements continue, and that when the new games come out that just got announced for next year, that it's non-toxic and good, sick as hell. Thanks for watching, and I'm gonna go brag about my shiny Eevee.